What is up, everybody, and welcome to another edition of the Not So Stupid Podcast. In today's episode, we are going to be breaking down 5 thought patterns that you need to avoid. And the reason I chose these 5 in particular is one, they apply very heavily to holding you back from achieving your fat loss goal or your muscle building goal, whatever goal you're trying to achieve in your fitness and nutrition journey. But beyond that, it also is these types of thinkings that put you in a very stressed position day to day in every other aspect of your life. So understanding and recognizing these thought patterns and learning how to break free from them, learning how to first of all be aware of them and them happening, and that these aren't okay, and that these are, and that there are flaws in thinking like this, will help you relieve so much stress in your life and be able to accelerate in whatever aspect of your life that you're trying to accelerate in. So this goes beyond fitness and nutrition, right? Again, you can use this in other aspects of your life, socially, professionally, what have you. But knowing and understanding and recognizing these become very, very important. Of course, I'm always going to tie everything back to fitness and nutrition, but again, for the most part, you can use this in any other aspect of your life. So starting off, we're going to go with the first type of thinking, which is just black and white thinking, which you might have heard of. It's a very popular and common term, but it really just comes down to explaining how people see things in extremes. Things are either good all the time, bad all the time, right all the time, wrong all the time, and it never leaves ground for any middle room, right? So we see this often in fitness and nutrition, where people will label certain foods, certain exercises as good all the time, bad all the time. You should never squat because it's always bad for your knees. You should never have ice cream because it's always going to be bad for you. You should never have donuts because it's always going to be bad for you. You should always have salads because that's the only healthy food for you. You should always try to do stretching and mobilizing because it's always going to be good for you. And in reality, although some things are good or more beneficial, have more pros than other things, it doesn't mean that doing them all the time is always going to be good. And it doesn't mean refraining from all these things that are typically considered bad, quote unquote bad, doesn't mean that they are going to be bad for you all the time or wrong for you to choose all the time, right? There's always going to be gray areas for everything that you're going to encounter, right? And again, beyond fitness and nutrition, this is always going to be true. Anything that is very strictly black and white, or anyone that claims any one idea to be so black and white, probably doesn't understand the full picture or the full context of, or all the different contexts that this situation can apply to, right? So if we're going to use examples of squatting is always bad for your knees, in reality, squatting is going to be bad for your knees if you already have knee issues. If you don't have knee issues, squatting is actually going to be really good for your knees. It's going to help strengthen the tendons and joints, tendons and ligaments around your knee joint to help give it more stability and help you become stronger in that joint, so you never have to experience issues there in the long run of your life. You know, likewise with ice cream and donuts, you know, those generic junk foods or cheap meals that people like to create a negative stigma around. Those foods, although aren't nutritionally beneficial to you compared to a salad, right? They're not going to have as many vitamins and minerals. They're not going to have as many phytonutrients. They're still going to have some nutritional value, and they're still going to probably in most cases taste better for you, and are going to help feed you and satisfy you in some way that salad isn't going to satisfy you. Especially if you're going out getting ice cream with your kids, you're going to want to enjoy time with your kids, enjoy connecting with your kids in that way. Food has more benefits to it beyond just its health benefits. There's a huge social aspect to food. When you travel, you need to try, or I shouldn't say you need to, but trying different kinds of foods are going to be one of the perks of traveling. You experience different cultures through food. They tell stories through food. You connect with people through food. You always meet up with for coffee and donuts. You meet up for lunch. You meet up for dinner with people you want to connect with and want to get to know better, or want to catch up with Food is always going to bring you together. So it goes beyond just what you're eating. Food is so much bigger than that. It has so many more identities. It's, again, food isn't just a black and white thing either. It's not, food is just for performance, and it's not like gas to your car, as some other trainers and nutritionists might compare it as. It's much bigger than that. And recognizing that in some instances, it's going to be okay to have coffee, or I'm sorry, it's going to be okay to have ice cream and donuts. It's going to be just fine. And likewise, with all the good things, there's going to be a point where doing too much of a good thing, it ends up being a bad thing. It's not the thing itself that's bad, it's how often you do it, and the dosage that you do it in, you know. So for instance, you know, if you have vitamin D, we all need vitamin D. Vitamin D is an essential nutrient for all of us, and it's vital for so many functions in the body. But if you overconsume vitamin D, it can actually kill you. Likewise with water. Water is the best example for this. If you overconsume water without also consuming electrolytes in a proper ratio, you can die from overconsumption of water, right? You know, that's a normal thing. Nothing is ever always good, and nothing is ever always bad. It will always depend on the context. There is a lot of gray area in any kind of opinion that you're going to have, any kind of action that you're going to try and follow through with, and that's important to recognize. And another kind of branch of black and white thinking that I think a lot of people fall into is shoulding and musting. They feel like they should do something or they must do something in order to accomplish something. And, you know, there's going to be some principles that are always going to be true, but it doesn't mean that you should do this one thing always. There's really very few instances where you should ever do any one thing. You could do specific things, but again, it's always about the principle that is going to be accomplished in doing so. So when we talk about dieting, for instance, or fat loss, more specifically, when we talk about fat loss, one thing that you need to do no matter what is be in a calorie deficit. Now, that is going to be a staple no matter who you are. As a human being on this earth, bound by the laws of physics, you're going to need to lose fat. But the expression of fat loss is going to be different. The expression of that calorie deficit is going to look different from person to person. So, for instance, someone can have a calorie deficit with a calorie restriction, right? They can do fasting, right? They can fast for 5 hours to start their day, and that'll create a calorie restriction for them while maintaining their activity. Someone else might just choose to be more active, to follow through with the calorie restriction, and that can look a lot of different ways, right? You can be more active by just walking more. You can be more active by taking up cardio, by doing a group fitness class, by going to the gym and lifting weights, by staying at home and doing body weight workouts. There's a lot of expressions that can accomplish the main principle that you're trying to accomplish. And there isn't one thing that anyone should be doing to lose weight or must be doing to lose weight. The only must is being in a calorie deficit, but the expression of that must comes in so many different ways. So breaking free of black and white thinking is going to be very powerful for most people. And I think a lot of people hate breaking free from this because it kind of creates a lot of ambiguity. You know, we like to have certainty in a lot of things, and having black and white thinking is kind of an easy way to create certainty, but it's not always the most accurate way to give. It's not always the most accurate way, and it is a very limiting way to live your life. So accepting and acknowledging that in certain contexts things are good, in certain contexts things are bad, that very same thing could be bad, is important to recognize in every aspect of your life. So black and white thinking is the first thought pattern that you should try to avoid. The next one is mental filtering. And mental filtering means only seeing the negative parts of situations or only seeing what is wrong with yourself. So for instance, very common social example is if you go to a party or even more specific, if you go to a party and you are telling a joke and you stumble on the joke and no one laughs at the joke, you feel like an idiot, and the only aspect of that party that you remember is how bad that joke was. You filtered out all the rest of the time that you were at the party that you probably enjoyed, that you probably had fun with, that everyone probably remembers you having fun with them for that one moment. And you're creating this false perception that the entire thing was a failure, that you were an embarrassment the entire time, right? And you see this in the gym and with nutrition too. I see this with my clients sometimes, is in the opposite regard. They'll remember the moments they eat salad, they'll remember the moments that they eat healthy or do a workout, but those moments are so few and far between. But because they filtered out all the bad moments, all the negative moments, they feel like they're doing so many good things, but are stuck and not moving the needle. They're not able to lose fat. But in reality, they're just filtering things to help them feel better about what they're doing and deflecting blame to something else. So mental filtering is a very hard one to recognize on your own, but it always starts with questioning and objectively looking at the bigger picture. So with both instances here, what you can do is take a step back and say, okay, how many times did I actually eat healthy? Okay, what other moments in the party actually went well for me? And breaking it down from there, actually, surveying, collecting, if you want to write this down and tally up all the good moments, all the bad moments for both sides, you can get a much clearer and better picture for how things actually went. So it's this way of, again, mental filtering is just this way of zeroing in on one or a few moments that were either in your favor or against you, but doesn't actually represent the entire thing. It doesn't represent the big picture of what's actually happening. So the best way to go about this is just ask yourself questions. Is this actually true? Is this something that's happened, or is this something that I just feel like happened, or is this just one moment that is just magnified in my mind? And once you can kind of go through the routine of questioning yourself and coming down to the truth and finding how often it really is true, you can start to you can start not defaulting to mental filtering, because I think for a lot of people this is a default in thinking, where they will zero in on those one moments and magnify them more than they need to be, whether that is negative moments that erase all the positives, or positive moments that erase all the negatives. Either way, you're going to have to come to grips with the reality and see what's actually happening there. So that is number 2. Mental filtering is number 2. Number 3 is going to be overgeneralization. And this kind of goes in line with black and white thinking, where you believe that the result of any one situation predicts the results of all future situations. So for instance, if you have dieted before and failed, or if you've tried something before and you failed, you think that you're not good at this and you will never be good at it. You already predicted your entire future, right? The most common things with overgeneralizations, the most common words that are going to be used are going to be all, never, always, every, all these very extreme words that give you no flexibility to do it sometimes or most of the time, or in a minority of the time. It's all or nothing in that regard as well. So the problem with this is that now when you overgeneralize, particularly yourself, I'm not even going to go into other people, because you could overgeneralize other people too, as this person is always boring, when in reality they might be just boring in certain situations, or they might be interesting for things that you don't have interest in, right? With yourself, anything that you try, you have the potential to be good at. But if you judge yourself and overgeneralize yourself based on the few early times that you tried it, you're going to think that you will always be bad. You're going to think that you'll never be good because of that. When in reality, you just need to go through the motions, be open-minded, create an opportunity for yourself to understand how to become better, so that you can continue to level up and eventually be good at this thing. It doesn't mean I'm always going to suck at this. It means I'm going to suck at this right now, right? It doesn't mean I'll never be good. It just means I'm not good right now, but I could be in the future. You're not good yet is something I like to say with my clients, where they'll say, like, man, I'm really bad at this, right? And that's an overgeneralization. They accepted that they're bad at this thing, and they're defining themselves as being bad at this thing. I'm bad at planning my day. I'm bad at cooking. I'm bad at setting up my meals. I'm bad at balancing with certain exercises. And I'll always stop that thought and let them know, hey, you're not good at this right now, but you're going to get better. you're not good at cooking right now, but we'll throw you a couple recipes and you'll get better. You're not good at balancing this exercise right now, so we'll do a regression for it and then level up to it soon so that you can be good at it at some point. What happens now doesn't mean that the future is going to repeat that. You don't have to put yourself in this box where you will always be something and never be something at the same, for whatever thing that you're going to define yourself as. So overgeneralizations, that is going to be the third thinking pattern. The next one is going to be emotional reasoning. Emotional reasoning is kind of like mental filtering, but a little different. So it's going to be where if you feel a certain thing, then it must be true. So you let your emotions reason for you, right? Just breaking down what the title of it is, emotional reasoning. You're letting your emotions dictate how you should feel about a situation, which is very dangerous because your emotions aren't logical, right? Obviously, emotional and logical are two completely different things. If you let your emotions dictate your actions, if you let your emotions be the decision makers and tell you what's true and not true, then you're going to put yourself in a position where in all likelihood you'll never be able to progress, because anytime you need to progress, anytime you need to break free of where you're at and start something new, you're going to have some discomfort, you're going to have some doubt, you're going to have some unsureness, lack of confidence, all these not so great positive emotions. But it doesn't mean that the thing you're doing is bad for you, right? I mean, I see this often with people that have people that are new to the gym, people that are new to eating healthy, people that are looking to break free of some old habits and trying something new. They'll attempt this new thing and they will get a lot of anxiety around it, right? So going to the gym for the first time and having to work out, if you haven't done that in years, right? That is a very overwhelming feeling. Your body's going to want to tell you to get out. Your mind, I should say, is going to want to tell you to get out, leave. We don't want to be here. You're going to embarrass yourself. You don't look good doing this. It's going to find all these little things, all these little ways to talk you out of it. But this is what you need. You need to move. You need to work out. You want to change your body. You're going to have to go through this in some way, right? Maybe the gym isn't the answer, but this doesn't mean that your emotions behind this make the gym a bad place. It's going to be a helpful place for you, but you just need to become more comfortable in that environment. And likewise, on the opposite end of the spectrum, we can feel good about stuff that actually is harmful to us, right? I think the easiest example for me to go to, because I always think of this as it's ingrained in my head as the worst feel-good coping mechanism, is just smoking cigarettes. Smoking cigarettes obviously is the worst thing for you. There is nothing good that comes out of it other than the feeling of relief, other than the stress relief, whatever that mental release is. That is a positive. You feel good doing that and you enjoy it, and that's why you keep doing it and repeating it and doing it again. But really it's harming you and harming your body. But emotionally you feel at ease with this thing that is hurting you. And if you let your emotions continue to dictate your reasoning, you're going to continue to be hurting yourself. Or likewise with the previous example, you're going to continue to be putting yourself in a position where you can't help yourself, right? Where if you're afraid to go to the gym and you stop yourself from going to the gym because you always feel anxiety around it, you're putting yourself in a position where you can't help yourself be better. And, obviously this is hard. I'm not trying to oversimplify this and say, hey, just suck it up. I would never say that. But it's important to recognize this thought pattern and how you're feeling. Because if you continue to let your emotions be the North Star of your decisions, you're never going to get too far with anything you're trying to accomplish. So finding different ways to be okay with it, or breaking down the logics of it, and becoming more okay and understanding why it's okay and why it's good, and repeating that to yourself instead of repeating the negativity, can help you push out of that comfort zone and get past this emotional reasoning to something that is actually going to be helping you. So that is number 4 here. We covered the fourth one, emotional reasoning. So recapping, we got black and white thinking, mental filtering, overgeneralization, emotional reasoning, and this last one is personalizing. And this one happens a lot with people that are trying to get started with the fat loss program, people that are trying to get started with helping themselves for once, or feel like nothing goes their way. It's where you blame yourself for external events outside of your control. So, so for instance, if you had, let's say, how can I say this? So let's say if you, I didn't come prepared with a good example for this one actually, but let me think of something. So if you go to an event, right, and you bump into someone and they spill their drink on themselves and you feel really bad, right? That is something that might happen whether or not you were there, so actually let me make the example more specific. If you go to a bar and there are a lot of drunk people around, just as there always are in bars, and this one person's already moving around, very lackadaisically, and is spilling his drink everywhere, and you bump into him, or he bumps into you, and they spill their drink on themselves and they get really mad about it, someone that follows personalizing thought pattern will blame themselves for being clumsy and not being aware of their surroundings, for always getting in the way. They'll find all these ways to put the blame on themselves for something that was already probably going to happen in the first place, right? So another example could be getting a flat tire on the way to work, right? And that is 90% of the time completely out of your control. If there's a nail on the road, you're not going to be able to see it in time to stop or veer out of control. Odds are you're never even going to see it. It's just going to happen. So that's completely out of your control. It's an event that will occur regardless of who was driving, as long as they drove at that time in that spot, right? But someone that follows a personalizing thought pattern will find a way to blame themselves of, I always have the worst luck with cars, I shouldn't have even drove, I should have gotten someone else to drive because I'm just such, everything bad always happens to me, woe is me kind of mentality. When again, in reality, objectively looking at it, zooming out of the big picture, removing yourself from the equation and just putting any other human there, they would experience the exact same thing, and that's where, and that's kind of like the way to break free from personalizing, is just zooming out and putting someone else in that position and seeing, is that something that would have happened regardless of who it was? Was it just like I was there at that time and it just happened to be me, which is also likely. But why do I continue to find myself blaming myself for all of these situations that aren't even actually happening? Do you even need to blame yourself for these situations, or is it just happenstance, and you want to find a reason to self-loathe? It's a very cyclical feedback that you create for yourself when you get stuck in this personalizing thought pattern. So just being aware whenever you do blame yourself and recognizing, was there something that you could have done differently, or would it have, no matter what happened to anyone that was in that situation? And just zooming out, slowing things down, and being objective about it will always help paint the picture a little clearer for you, and take a lot of stress and overwhelm off of yourself. So recapping of those 5 thought patterns that you need to start avoiding, or start at least creating awareness around. Let's say this: 5 thought patterns that you need to create awareness around so that you can be better, so you can make better informed decisions and become a better person and reach the goals that you want. Black and white thinking, mental filtering, overgeneralization, emotional reasoning, and personalizing. Those are going to be the top 5 right there. I read a list of about 10 to 12 different thought patterns that are just unhealthy thought patterns, and these 5 stuck out the most to me as the ones I see happening most often. So I picked them pretty intentionally, and I hope that if you were listening to this and caught yourself thinking about any of these, you were able to find some value in this as well. If you know anybody that is trapped in these thought patterns and they don't even identify it, or maybe you just identified it for them by listening to this podcast, please share it with them so that they can be better off as well and create that awareness that they need to overcome that. But thank you guys for listening to this episode. We will see you on the next one.